Admiral Rhea Hardin stood at the viewport of the UNS Aegis, her silhouette cast against the infinite darkness of space. The stars glittered like distant promises across the void. Her hands clasped behind her back, shoulders square beneath her midnight blue uniform adorned with the insignia of the United Nations Space Fleet. The weight of command was a familiar burden, but today it felt heavier. "Admiral," her communications officer called, "we're receiving an unusual transmission. Wideband distress signal, originating from the Carina Sagittarius arm." Hardin's brow furrowed. "Put it through." The signal was weak, distorted by distance and stellar interference, but unmistakable in its urgency. A plea for help, broadcast on all frequencies, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear it and respond. "Analysis?" she asked, her voice betraying none of the curiosity piqued within her. "Origin confirmed. A Zathia system. Species, a Zathian. Known to be a scientifically advanced but militarily limited civilization. Peaceful, from what little contact we've had." Hardin nodded. The Azathians, she'd read reports about them. Frail beings with elongated limbs, adapted to the low gravity of their homeworld. Their society prized knowledge and harmony. Their technological achievements impressive, particularly in biotechnology and sustainable energy. But they were not warriors. "What's the nature of the threat?" she inquired. The tactical officer stepped forward. "Preliminary data suggests an invasion by the URAC collective." A ripple of tension passed through the bridge. The URAC, a hive-minded insectoid species known for their rapid expansion and ruthless conquest of neighboring systems. They left nothing behind but barren worlds stripped of resources. The Azathians have no hope of repelling such an attack, the tactical officer continued. Their orbital defenses are minimal, their ground forces practically non-existent. Hardin turned from the viewport, her decision already made. "Contact Fleet Command. Inform them we are responding to a distress call from Azathia." Her executive officer shifted uncomfortably. "Admiral, with respect, intervention in an interstellar conflict between non-aligned species is beyond our mandate." Hardin's steel-gray eyes fixed on the officer. "We left Earth, our death world as the galactic community calls it, with a promise to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Azathians are crying out for help. I intend to answer." On the surface of Azathia, panic had spread through the high council chambers like a virus. The elegant, vaulted hall with its translucent crystal arches, normally a place of measured debate and calm deliberation, now echoed with the voices of frightened officials. Councillor Myval, the head of the diplomatic guild, stood at the center. His slender frame seemed to bend under the weight of the crisis, large, almond-shaped eyes reflecting the holographic display that showed the devastation of their outermost colony. "We've lost contact with the Helio settlement," announced High Scholar Tinus, his voice trembling as he adjusted the display. "Based on the trajectory of the URAC fleet, they'll reach our second defensive line within 3 planetary rotations." Myval stared at the images. Smoldering ruins where once a thriving scientific outpost had stood. Thousands of Azathian lives extinguished. Their experiments, their knowledge gone. "Our defense systems cannot withstand them," Tinus continued, his elongated fingers trembling slightly as he manipulated the hologram. "The URAC have evolved. Their tactics are more organized, their weapons more advanced than in previous encounters with other species." An elderly Azathian rose from the council table. "Then we must negotiate. Surely we can offer them something. Resources, technology, knowledge." "They don't negotiate," Myval interrupted, his voice firmer than usual. "The URAC consume. They destroy. Reports from the Keldorian and Voss systems confirm this. No diplomatic overtures were accepted before those civilizations fell." Silence descended upon the chamber as the reality of their situation sank in. The Azathians, with their millennia of peaceful progress, their contributions to science and art, faced extinction. "We have one option left," Myval said finally. "We send a distress signal. To everyone. Anyone who might listen." The council erupted in discord. "Who would come to our aid?" one council member scoffed. "What species would risk their own safety for ours? And if someone does respond, Tynes added, his voice barely audible. What if they're worse than the Urak? What if we invite something even more dangerous to our doorstep? Myval looked around the council chamber, at the frightened faces of his people. They had never known true conflict, had never needed to fight for survival. Their evolution on a low-gravity world with abundant resources and few predators had not prepared them for this moment. We have no choice, he said firmly. If we do nothing, our extinction is certain. At least this way, we have hope. With reluctant agreement from the council, Myval approached the communication array. His hand hovered over the transmission control, a moment of hesitation as he considered Tynes's words. What if they call forth something worse than the Urak? With a deep breath, Myval pressed his palm against the panel. The distress signal, encoded with information about Azathia, about the Urak threat, about their desperate need for help, surged outward, carried by powerful transmitters toward the stars. It was a cry into the darkness, a desperate hope that someone would hear them, someone who could save them. No one on Azathia could have predicted that their signal would reach the vessels of the species known throughout the galaxy as Deathworlders, humans from Earth, evolved on a high-gravity, high-oxygen world filled with predators and natural disasters. A species whose history was written in conflict and whose bodies were forged for survival against all odds. A species that, despite its fearsome reputation, had developed an equally powerful capacity for compassion. On the UNS Aegis, Admiral Rhea Hardin convened her senior staff in a tactical briefing room. The holographic display at the center of the table showed the Azathia system, the projected path of the Urak fleet, and the estimated damage already inflicted. We have 12 battle-ready vessels within rapid response range, reported her strategic officer. The UNS Aegis will lead, with the Thunderchild, Dauntless, and Excalibur as our primary strike force. The remaining ships will form a defensive perimeter. Commander Valera, head of the Marine Corps detachment, leaned forward. Her weathered face was a map of past battles, her eyes sharp with tactical assessment. My troops are prepared for ground engagement, Admiral. We've faced insectoid species before during the Tarsus campaign. The Urak may be different, but we've studied their known behaviors and weaknesses. Hard nodded. Dr. Harrison, what's our medical readiness? We may need to provide aid to Azathian civilians. Dr. Sarah Harrison, Chief Medical Officer, consulted her data pad. We've synthesized compatible medical supplies based on the Azathian biological data in our databases. My team is prepared for triage and emergency care, but I should note that their physiology is significantly different from ours. They're adapted to a 0.6 G environment with a different atmospheric composition. A concern for our troops as well, Valera added. We'll need to calibrate our exo-assists for low-gravity operations. A younger officer at the end of the table cleared his throat. Admiral, I feel compelled to point out the political implications. The Azathians aren't members of the United Planets Alliance. Intervention could be seen as overreach. Hardin fixed the officer with a steady gaze. We didn't leave Earth to stand by while innocent civilizations are exterminated. If Fleet Command has objections, they can lodge them through official channels after we've saved the Azathians. She stood, signaling the end of the briefing. Set course for the Azathia system, maximum sustainable speed. I want all departments at combat readiness. We don't know what we'll find when we arrive, but I intend to make sure the Azathians still have a home when we leave. As the officers filed out, Hardin remained, studying the holographic display. The Urak fleet, a swarm of ships moving with the single-minded purpose of their hive consciousness. The Azathian colonies delicate, vulnerable, already suffering. And between them, soon, would be the ships of humanity. This is what we trained for, she whispered to herself. This is why we reach for the stars. The response to Myval's distress signal came faster than anyone on Azathia had dared to hope. A transmission, direct and clear, cutting through the atmosphere of dread that had settled over the High Council. This is Admiral Rhea Hardin of the United Nations Space Fleet Vessel Aegis. We have received your distress call and are en route to provide assistance. Estimated arrival, 36 hours. Stand firm, Azathia. Help is coming. The council chamber erupted in a mixture of relief and new anxiety. They were not alone, but their potential saviors were humans. Deathworlders. Humans, Tynas whispered, wide eyes reflecting new fear. I've studied their biological profile. They evolved on a world with nearly twice our gravity, with atmospheric oxygen levels that would be toxic to us. Their bodies are dense with muscle, their bones reinforced for impact resistance. They're built for violence. They're also the only ones who answered our call, Myval countered. And they've established peaceful relations with several non-aggressive species. An elder council member rose shakily to her feet. We know stories of their history, endless wars among their own kind. What if they help us defeat the Urak only to claim our worlds for themselves? We would be trading one conqueror for another. Myval felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Was he leading his people from one danger into another? Yet what choice do they have? We must prepare to receive them, he decided. And yes, we should be cautious. But remember, they chose to answer a plea for help from strangers. That speaks to something beyond conquest. As the council dispersed to make preparations, Tynas approached Myval privately. I've compiled data on human military capabilities from our archives. Their weapons, Myval, they could obliterate our cities with ease if they chose to. Myval placed a reassuring hand on his friend's shoulder, though he felt anything but confident. Then we must ensure they have no reason to choose that path. We offer transparency, cooperation, and gratitude. Tynas nodded reluctantly. I'll prepare a comprehensive briefing on the Urak threat for them. Perhaps if we demonstrate our value as allies rather than subjects. Yes, Myval agreed. We may be physically weaker, but our knowledge and technological innovations are our strength. We must show them that saving Azathia serves a greater purpose than mere charity. As Myval left the council chamber, he paused at a viewport overlooking the capital city. Its delicate spires and arching bridges, the gardens and laboratories where generations of Azathians had peacefully pursued knowledge and art. Soon, humans would walk those streets. Deathworlders, with their powerful bodies and history of warfare, would stand in the halls of the High Council. And yet, Myval felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the very traits that made humans fearsome, their strength, their resilience, their capacity for fighting, were exactly what Azathia needed now. The first visual contact between the Azathians and humans came via secure transmission. Myval and Tynas, representing the High Council, sat before the communication array as the signal connected. When Admiral Hardin's image appeared on the screen, both Azathians involuntarily tensed. Even through the electronic medium, there is something viscerally imposing about the human. Her posture, her direct gaze, the set of her jaw, all spoke of a natural predator, a being evolved for dominance. Counselor Myval, High Scholar Tynas, Hardin greeted them, her voice surprisingly measured. On behalf of Earth and the United Nations Space Fleet, I express our sincere regret for the attack on your people. We're accelerating our approach and will reach your system within 24 hours. Myval inclined his head in the Azathian gesture of gratitude. Admiral Hardin, we are deeply thankful for your response. Our situation grows more desperate by the hour. The Urak have already destroyed our outermost colony and are advancing on our secondary defensive line. We've analyzed the data you transmitted, Hardin replied. My tactical team is formulating a response strategy. We'll need to coordinate with your defense systems, limited though they may be. Tynas leaned forward. Admiral, there's something unusual about this Urak incursion. Their tactics show a level of strategic sophistication we haven't seen in previous encounters. It's as if they're being guided. Hardin's expression sharpened with interest. Guided? By what? We don't know, Tynas admitted. But their attack patterns, their coordination, it's unlike the swarm behavior typically associated with the Urak. They're targeting our communication arrays with precision, isolating colonies before destroying them. Hardin was silent for a moment, processing this information. We'll investigate this anomaly once we secure your homeworld. For now, I need your people to prepare for our arrival. We'll be bringing ground forces to protect civilian areas if the URAC break through. Myval exchanged a glance with Tynus. The idea of armed humans on their soil was disquieting, but the alternative was unthinkable. We'll make the necessary arrangements, Myval assured her. Our Planetary Defense Council will coordinate with your officers. As they concluded the transmission, Tynus turned to Myval, his expression troubled. Did you notice how she reacted to the mention of outside influence? As if it confirmed a suspicion. Myval nodded slowly. The humans may know more than they're telling us. But then, we're hardly in a position to demand full disclosure. Right now, we need their strength more than their honesty. The approach of the human fleet was visible to the naked eye from Azathia's surface. 12 massive warships emerging from superluminal travel on the edge of the system, their hulls gleaming in the light of Azathia's sun. Telescopic images revealed the true scale of the vessels. The UNS Aegis alone was nearly 2 kilometers in length, bristling with weapon systems and launch bays. In a council chamber, now converted into a crisis command center, Azathians watched with a mixture of awe and trepidation as the human fleet took up defensive positions in high orbit. Look at the size of those ships, one council member whispered. How much resources must they have committed to military technology? A necessity of their evolution, Tynus responded, though he too couldn't hide his amazement. Their entire history has been shaped by competition and conflict. What we're seeing is the product of thousands of years of warfare, refined and expanded for space. Myval received word that a human diplomatic party was preparing to descend to the surface. Admiral Hardin herself would lead the delegation, an unprecedented honor, according to the human protocol officers who had briefed him. They're demonstrating commitment, Myval told the anxious council. By sending their highest-ranking officer, they're signaling serious intent to help us, or to assess our weaknesses firsthand, an elder muttered. Before Myval could respond, the crisis center's alert system chimed. URAC vessels detected at the edge of the system, announced the defense coordinator. They've engaged the human outer perimeter. All eyes turned to the tactical display. The swarm of URAC ships, hundreds of them, moving in their characteristic pattern, had encountered the human fleet's outermost vessels. What happened next left the Azathians speechless. The human ships didn't retreat or adopt a defensive posture. They attacked, decisive, coordinated strikes that cut through the first wave of URAC craft as if they were nothing. World. The next hours were filled with intense strategic planning. High Scholar Tynus presented detailed information about the URAC, their biological weaknesses, their combat tendencies, the unusual patterns they had exhibited in recent attacks. Here, Tynus highlighted a section of data, is where we first noticed the anomaly. The URAC are typically a collective consciousness, with individual drones having limited independent function. But in the attack on Helios colony, they displayed complex flanking maneuvers, communication disruption tactics, and targeted strikes against our research facilities rather than population centers. Hardin and Valera exchanged a meaningful glance. This confirms our intelligence, Hardin said carefully. We've encountered similar patterns in other sectors. Something, or someone, is influencing the URAC, enhancing their natural aggression with tactical guidance. You knew of this? Myval asked, a hint of accusation in his voice. We had suspicions, Hardin admitted, but no concrete evidence until now. We believe a third party may be using the URAC as proxies for expansion. Who? Pressed Tynus. We don't know with certainty, Hardin replied. Our intelligence suggests a species known as the Zereth may be involved. They're reclusive, technologically advanced, and have shown interest in the resources present in this sector. The revelation sent murmurs through the Azathian officials. If true, they faced not just the brute force of a URAC, but the calculated malice of a manipulator. Why would you withhold this information? An elder council member demanded. Commander Valera stepped forward. Because speculation without evidence creates panic, not preparation. We needed to confirm our theory before sharing it. Myval raised a hand to calm the growing discord. What matters now is how this information affects our defense strategy. If the URAC are being directed, Can we disrupt that control? That's what we intend to find out, Hardin said. But first, we need to secure your homeworld and remaining colonies. Commander Valera will lead a ground force to your most vulnerable settlement, Lysithea, correct, while our fleet maintains orbital superiority. An Azathian defense coordinator spoke up. You propose to place human soldiers on our soil? Armed Deathworlders among our civilians? Hardin's expression hardened slightly. Would you prefer URAC drones instead? My Marines are disciplined professionals who have trained specifically for civilian protection operations. Mival intervened before tensions could escalate. Admiral Hardin's proposal is sound. The URAC have already demonstrated their intentions toward our people. I, for one, would welcome human protectors. The meeting continued, with plans refined and responsibilities assigned. Throughout, Mival observed the humans, their efficiency, their direct approach to problems, the casual confidence with which they discussed military operations that would terrify most Azathians. These were beings who had evolved in an environment that demanded constant vigilance, constant readiness for conflict. And yet, there was something more to them, a principle that seemed to guide their actions beyond mere survival. The humans called it a sense of duty, of honor. To the Azathians, it was almost incomprehensible, the willingness to risk one's life for strangers based on abstract ideals. As the meeting concluded, Mival approached Admiral Hardin privately. Some members of our council fear that once the URAC are defeated, humans might see Azathia as a tempting prize. I need to assure them this isn't the case. Hardin met his gaze steadily. Counselor, Earth learned long ago that conquest brings only temporary power. True strength comes from alliance, from mutual respect. We didn't cross the stars to subjugate other species. We came to join a community of civilizations, each with their own contributions to make. She extended her hand, palm up, a gesture of openness in human culture. When this crisis is over, I hope to negotiate a formal protection treaty between our peoples, not as ruler and subject, but as allies. Mival placed his hand above hers, careful not to initiate physical contact that might be uncomfortable for either of them. I believe you, Admiral, and I will advocate for such an alliance when the time comes. As orbital scans had confirmed, the URAC had already established a foothold on Lysithea, Azathia's largest colony world. Commander Valera led the Marine deployment, 12 dropships descending through the planet's thin atmosphere toward the colony's central hub. From the Tactical Operations Center on Azathia, Mival and Tynas watched the mission unfold through helmet cameras and drone footage. The human soldiers moved with controlled precision through Lysithea's streets, their combat armor augmenting their already formidable physical capabilities. They're adapting to the low gravity remarkably well, Tynas observed. Look at how they use it to their advantage in urban combat. It was true. The Marines leaped impossible distances between buildings, used minimal thrust from their armor to change direction mid-air, and executed flanking maneuvers that would be impossible in Earth gravity. Enemy concentration ahead. Valera's voice came through the comm, moving to secure the civilian shelter. The camera feed showed a horde of URAC drones, chitinous, multi-limbed creatures with biomechanical augmentations, surrounding a domed structure where Azathian colonists had taken refuge. The URAC were attempting to breach the doors using cutting tools and acidic secretions. Valera's team moved in without hesitation. Their weapons, a combination of kinetic projectiles and focused energy beams, tore through the URAC's natural armor. The Marines fought with a coordination that matched the URAC's hive mind advantage, anticipating each other's movements without constant communication. They're incredible, whispered an Azathian defense coordinator. One human soldier is worth a dozen URAC drones. The battle for the shelter was swift and decisive. The Marines secured the perimeter, evacuated the terrified Azathian civilians, and established a defensive position around the colony's central district. Meanwhile, in orbit, Admiral Hardin's fleet engaged the main URAC force. The tactical display showed human warships executing complex maneuvers, drawing the URAC into prepared killing zones where their superior numbers became a disadvantage rather than an asset. It's working, Myval breathed, hardly daring to believe. They're actually pushing them back. Tynas, however, was frowning at a secondary display. There's something wrong with our long-range communications. We're getting interference. As if in response to his observation, the tactical feeds suddenly flickered. Static cut across the displays, and the coordinated movement of the human fleet faltered momentarily. What's happening? Myval demanded. Some kind of jamming signal, a technician reported. It's affecting both our systems and the human communication network. Admiral Hardin's voice came through, distorted but urgent. Azathian command, we're detecting a new energy signature. It's not URAC, repeat, not URAC in origin. Something is interfering with our tactical network. Tynas frantically analyzed the incoming data. The source appears to be a small object in high orbit, on the far side of our second moon. It's broadcasting on frequencies that disrupt both our bioneural networks and the human's quantum encryption. In the confusion, the URAC fleet seized the advantage. Several ships broke through the human defensive line, heading directly for Azathia. They're targeting our capital, an elder council member cried. They know exactly where to strike. On the ground of Lysithea, Commander Valera's forces faced a similar challenge. The URAC drones, previously disorganized after losing their initial advantage, suddenly adopted new attack patterns. They converged on the Marines' position with renewed coordination. They're being directed, Valera reported, her voice clear despite the interference. Someone's feeding them real-time tactical data on our positions and movements. In the command center, chaos threatened to overwhelm the Azathian leadership. Fear, an emotion many had never fully experienced before, clouded judgment and sparked accusations. This is no coincidence, one council member shouted. The humans arrive, and suddenly unknown technology appears to aid the URAC? What if this is a human plot? A scheme to weaken us so they can claim our worlds? Nonsense, Myval countered. Why would they fight the URAC at all if conquest was their goal? They could simply wait until the URAC had weakened us and then destroy both sides. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Even as the human fleet regrouped, adjusting their communications to resist the interference, whispers spread through the command center. The ancient fear of the Deathworlders, dormant but never truly forgotten, began to resurface. Admiral Hardin's face appeared on the main display, her expression grim but determined. Counselor Myval, we've identified the source of the interference. It's consistent with Zereth technology, a remote guidance system that's enhancing the URAC's natural hive mind. We need to neutralize it immediately. Ow, Tina's asked. Our weapons cannot reach it, and your ships are engaged with the URAC fleet. I'm dispatching a special operations team, Hardin replied, making his decision. You shall have all the assistance we can provide. High Scholar Tynas will personally coordinate with your team. As the transmission ended, an elder approached Myval. You trust them too readily, Counselor. What if this is a ruse? What if there is no Zereth device, and they simply seek our communication protocols for their own use? Myval looked toward the tactical display, where human ships were taking damage as they positioned themselves to shield Azathia from the approaching URAC vessels. If they wished to conquer us, Elder, they would not need subterfuge, and they certainly wouldn't sacrifice their own to maintain the illusion. At that moment, a human dropship launched from the UNS Aegis, a small, dark shape against the vastness of space. Its mission, to locate and destroy the device that threatened to turn the tide of battle against both humans and Azathians. The special operations team consisted of 6 humans, their specialized armor designed for extreme environments and stealth approaches. Their dropship, barely larger than a shuttle, employed advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection as it maneuvered toward Azathia's second moon. On the surface of Lysithea, Commander Valera's Marines had established a fortified perimeter around the colony's central district. Azathian civilians, evacuated from outlying areas, huddled in the designated safe zones. Many had never seen a human before, and their initial terror of the Deathworlders was gradually being replaced by cautious gratitude as they witnessed the Marines risking their lives to protect them. "Commander," a young Marine reported, "Urak forces are massing for another assault. Their movements indicate coordinated attack patterns on 3 fronts." Valera studied the tactical display, noting how the Urak seemed to anticipate their defensive positions. "They're adapting to our strategies faster than they should be able to. That jamming device must be doing more than disrupting communications. It's providing them with tactical analysis." She adjusted her plans accordingly, implementing unconventional deployment patterns and setting up false defensive positions to confuse the enemy's intelligence. In orbit, Admiral Hardin's fleet executed a daring maneuver. 3 of their largest vessels, including the Aegis, broke formation and accelerated directly toward the main Urak swarm. It appeared to be a frontal assault, reckless, even suicidal given the numbers they faced. The Urak responded predictably, concentrating their forces to meet the human attack. But it was a feint. As the Urak shifted position, smaller human vessels swept in from multiple vectors, targeting the now exposed flanks of the swarm. "Brilliant," Tynas murmured, watching the battle unfold. "They're using the Urak's enhanced coordination against them. The controlling intelligence expects conventional tactics and reacts accordingly." The human special ops team had reached their objective, a small satellite positioned in the shadow of Azathia's second moon. The device was unlike anything in either human or Azathian records. A crystalline structure surrounded by a pulsing energy field, with no visible access points or interfaces. "Analysis confirms Zerith origin," the team leader reported back to the Aegis. "We're sending visual data now. Dr. Harrison, we need your Xenotech expertise." In the Aegis's science lab, Dr. Sarah Harrison studied the incoming images. "It's definitely Zerith work. The crystalline matrix matches samples we've recovered from other sites. The energy signature suggests it's not just a jamming device. It's actively processing and transmitting tactical data to the Urak swarm." "Can you disable it?" Hardin asked. "Not remotely," Harrison replied. "But if the team can place disruptor charges at these specific points," she marked locations on the image, "they should be able to collapse the field and destroy the processing core." As the special ops team prepared to approach the device, the battle in orbit reached a critical phase. The Urak, despite losing coordination due to Hardin's tactics, still outnumbered the human fleet. 3 human vessels had taken significant damage, and the Urak were pressing their advantage through sheer numbers. On Lysathea, Commander Valera received an urgent communication from one of her squad leaders. "Commander, we've captured something. A Urak drone, different from the others. It has additional cybernetic components, and it was hanging back from the main assault force, almost as if directing." Valera immediately recognized the significance. "Secure it and establish a containment field. This could be a control node, a direct link to whoever's manipulating the swarm." She relayed this information to Admiral Hardin, who shared it with the Special Operations team approaching the Zerith device. "This confirms our theory," Hardin told the team leader. "The Zerith aren't just providing tactical guidance. They've physically modified key Urak drones to serve as field commanders. The satellite is the main controller, but these enhanced drones provide local coordination." The Special Ops team had reached the Zerith device. Using their armor's adaptive camouflage, they positioned themselves strategically around the crystalline structure. Their movements were deliberate, cautious, a testament to years of training in zero-gravity operations. In position, the team leader reported, preparing to place disruptor charges as instructed. Back on Azathia, the command center was tense with anticipation. The tactical display showed human warships taking increasing damage as they maintained their protective formation around the planet. Several Urak vessels had broken through, only to be intercepted by the Aegis's escort ships at great cost. "They're sacrificing themselves for us," an Azathian officer whispered, watching as a human vessel deliberately positioned itself between an incoming Urak ship and Azathia's orbital research station. Myval stood resolute, though his slender frame trembled slightly with the stress of the crisis. "This is what alliance truly means," he said. "Not words or treaties, but the willingness to stand together against destruction." The doubt that had spread through the command center began to recede as they witnessed the human fleet's selfless defense of Azathian territory. Even the elder who had been most vocal in his suspicions fell silent, unable to reconcile his fears with the evidence before him. On Lysithea, Commander Valera and her team studied the captured Urak drone. Unlike its brethren, this one had extensive cybernetic implants integrated with its nervous system, sophisticated technology that went far beyond the Urak's known capabilities. "This confirms it," Valera said. "These aren't random attacks. The Urak are being used as weapons by someone with far more advanced technology. The question is, why target Azathia specifically?" Before anyone could speculate further, the communications system crackled. Despite the interference, Admiral Hardin's voice came through. "Special Operations Team is in final approach to the control device. Stand by." In the shadow of Azathia's moon, the human operatives moved with precision born of countless high-risk missions. They placed disruptor charges at the exact points Dr. Harrison had indicated, each one calibrated to destabilize the crystalline structure without triggering its defensive systems. Charges placed, the team leader reported, awaiting detonation order. On the Aegis's bridge, Admiral Hardin took a deep breath. If their theory was correct, destroying the device would disrupt the enhanced coordination of the Urak forces. If they were wrong, or if the Zereth had anticipated this move and built in countermeasures, they could be making things worse. "Execute," she ordered. The Special Ops team activated the charges and immediately propelled themselves away from the device, using their armor's thrusters to reach a safe distance. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the crystalline structure began to vibrate. Cracks appeared along its surface, spreading outward like a spiderweb. A pulse of energy erupted from its core, and then silence. The device imploded, collapsing in on itself until nothing remained but crystalline dust floating in the void. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across all communication channels, the interference ceased. Clear transmissions resumed between the human fleet, ground forces, and Azathian command. More importantly, the Urak attack patterns changed. The swarm, which had been operating with uncharacteristic precision, suddenly reverted to more primitive tactics. Individual drones seemed disoriented, their movements erratic. "It's working," Tynes exclaimed, watching the tactical display. "They've lost their central guidance system." On Lysithea, the effect was even more pronounced. The captured field commander drone went completely inert, its cybernetic implants shutting down simultaneously with the destruction of the orbital device. Commander Valera wasted no time exploiting the advantage. "All units advance. The Urak are disorganized. Press the attack before they can regroup." In orbit, Admiral Hardin issued similar orders. The human fleet, no longer constrained by the need to defend against coordinated attacks, shifted to an aggressive posture. Ships that had been taking damage to protect Azathian assets now targeted the heart of the Urak swarm. In the command center, Myval watched with growing hope as the tide of battle turned decisively. The Urak, deprived of their tactical advantage, were no match for the disciplined human forces. Their numerical superiority meant little without coordination. "We're winning," an Azathian officer announced, incredulous. The Urak fleet is beginning to withdraw. But amidst the celebration, Tynes noticed something troubling. "Counselor, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from the retreating Urak command vessel. It's transmitting something, a data burst directed toward the far reaches of the system. Can we intercept it?" Myval asked. "Negative," Tynes replied. "It's already gone. But the pattern matches what we saw from the Zereth device. I believe they're reporting back to their masters." Myval's expression darkened. "Then this may not be over. The Zereth now know that their proxy force has failed, and that humans have interfered with their plans." On the bridge of the Aegis, Admiral Hardin received similar information from her tactical officers. Analysis of the transmission suggests it contained detailed scans of our fleet configuration and weapons capabilities, her intelligence officer reported. If the Zereth are behind this, they now have a comprehensive assessment of human military technology. Hardin's face remained impassive, but her eyes hardened. Then we've announced our presence in this sector in the most dramatic way possible. So be it. Better to be known as defenders than to hide in the shadows while civilizations fall. She opened a channel to a Zathian command. Counselor Myval, the immediate threat is receding. The Urak fleet is in full retreat, and Commander Valera reports that ground forces on Lysithea are in mop-up operations. I request permission to land and discuss our next steps. In the Azathian command center, the mood had shifted dramatically. The fear and suspicion that had greeted the humans' arrival had given way to relief and gratitude. Even those who had voiced concerns about the Deathworlder's intentions couldn't deny the evidence of their actions. Permission granted, Admiral, Myval replied. The High Council awaits your arrival. We have much to discuss, and much to thank you for. As the human shuttle descended toward Azathia's surface, once more, Myval turned to Tynus. We sent a cry for help into the darkness, he said quietly, and the response came from those we most feared. Perhaps there's a lesson in that. Tynus nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps the universe has a sense of irony. Or perhaps we've been too quick to judge based on physical differences rather than moral character. The council hall, which had earlier been filled with tension and uncertainty, now welcomed the human delegation with a very different atmosphere. Azathians lined the approach, their normally reserved demeanor replaced by open expressions of gratitude. Some even attempted the human gesture of applause as Admiral Hardin and her officers walked past. Inside, the full High Council had assembled. When Hardin entered, they rose in unison, a mark of respect traditionally reserved for the most honored guests. Myval stepped forward, his posture straighter, his voice steadier than before. The crisis had changed him, as it had changed all of them. Admiral Rhea Hardin, Commander Valera, honored officers of the United Nations Space Fleet. On behalf of all Azathians, I extend our deepest gratitude for your intervention. Without your courage and sacrifice, our civilization would now be facing extinction. Hardin acknowledged the thanks with a respectful nod. The thanks is mutual, Counselor. Your people's intelligence and cooperation were crucial to our success. But we should not celebrate too quickly. The Urak have been driven back, not defeated entirely. And more concerning, we now have confirmation that the Zereth are actively expanding their influence in this sector. What do we know of these Zereth? An elder council member asked. Why would they target Azathia? Dr. Harrison stepped forward at Hardin's gesture. The Zereth are a highly advanced species from the galactic core. They rarely engage directly with other civilizations, preferring to work through proxies like the Urak. Based on the data we've gathered, we believe they may be interested in Azathia for two reasons. Your advanced biotechnology research and your strategic position near the Carina Transit Corridor. They seek to control key transit routes, Hardin continued. By using the Urak to eliminate or subjugate species along these corridors, they can extend their influence without risking their own forces. Tynus, who had been analyzing the recovered Zereth technology, added his own insights. The cybernetic implants in the Urak Commander drone show signs of forced neural integration. The Zereth aren't just directing the Urak, they're essentially enslaving them, overriding their natural hive consciousness with external control. This revelation sent murmurs through the council chamber. Even the Urak, for all their aggression, were victims in a larger scheme. What happens now? Myval asked. The Urak have retreated, but as you say, they're not defeated. And if the Zereth are truly behind these attacks, they may try again, perhaps with different proxies. Hardin straightened, her posture reflecting the weight of her next words. That is why I propose a formal protection treaty between Earth and Azathia. Our fleets would establish a permanent presence in your system, providing security while your own defense capabilities are developed. In return, we would ask for access to your scientific knowledge, particularly in fields where Azathian research exceeds our own. The proposal was met with a mixture of relief and concern. A permanent human presence would ensure Azathia's safety, but it would also mean a profound change to their isolated society. This would not be occupation or annexation, Hardin clarified, sensing their hesitation. Azathia would remain sovereign, with humans serving as allies and advisors, not rulers. Think of it as a partnership between complementary civilizations, your scientific brilliance paired with our military experience. Myval looked around at his fellow council members, reading the shifting emotions on their faces. The crisis had forced them to confront a harsh reality. Their peaceful isolation was no longer sustainable in a galaxy where species like the Xerath operated through proxies. The Council will need time to discuss this proposal formally, Myval said. But speaking personally, I believe such an alliance would benefit both our peoples. Today has shown that despite our physical differences, we share common values: the defense of life, the pursuit of knowledge, the right of civilizations to determine their own path. Hardin smiled, a genuine expression that softened her otherwise commanding presence. Well said, Counselor. Humans have a saying, adversity reveals true character. Today, both our species have shown theirs. As the meeting continued, plans were made for immediate recovery operations. Human medical teams would assist with Azathian casualties on Lysithea. Engineering crews would help repair damaged infrastructure. And a combined scientific task force would study the recovered Xerath technology, seeking weaknesses that might be exploited in future encounters. Commander Valera reported from Lysithea via holographic projection. The colony was secure, with Urak stragglers being systematically eliminated. More importantly, the Azathian civilians who had been sheltering in fear now worked alongside human marines in restoration efforts. The initial terror of the Deathworlders had been replaced by something approaching awe as they witnessed humans effortlessly lifting debris that would require machinery for Azathians to move. Cultural exchange is already happening, Admiral, Valera noted with a hint of amusement. Some of my Marines are learning Azathian botanical terms, while the colonists are very interested in human exercise regimens. Apparently, our physical capabilities are somewhat inspiring to them. This brought a round of gentle laughter from both humans and Azathians, perhaps the first moment of genuine shared mirth between the species. The sound seemed to transform the council chamber, replacing the last vestiges of tension with something new, the beginning of true understanding. As the day's discussions concluded, Hardin prepared to return to the Aegis. There were still Urak vessels to track, damage reports to review, and the somber task of honoring those humans who had given their lives in defense of Azathia. Myval accompanied her to the landing pad, both leaders walking in comfortable silence for a moment before the Azathian spoke. When we sent our distress signal, I feared that if anyone answered, they might be as bad as the Urak, just another predator looking for easy prey. When we learned it was humans, Deathworlders, who responded, that fear only intensified. Hardin listened without interrupting, recognizing the importance of what was being shared. I was wrong, Myval continued. Your people have shown us that strength can serve compassion, that evolution for survival doesn't preclude evolution of ethics. You've given us more than protection, Admiral Hardin. You've given us a new perspective on the galaxy and our place in it. Hardin nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps that's the greatest gift any civilization can offer another, a new way of seeing. From Earth, we brought our experience with conflict, our adaptability, our willingness to fight. But you've reminded us why we fight, to protect knowledge, culture, peaceful progress. Each of us possesses what the other needs. They reached the landing pad, where Hardin's shuttle waited. In the distance, the first stars were becoming visible in Azathia's evening sky. Among them, the human fleet could be seen as moving points of light, maintaining their protective orbit. Before you arrived, Myval said, one of our elders warned that we might be trading one conqueror for another. Now I understand the difference. A conqueror takes, a defender gives. Your people have given without hesitation, even their lives. That's the duty we accepted when we reached for the stars, Hardin replied. Earth's history taught us the cost of unchecked aggression, of valuing power above principles. When we finally achieved interstellar travel, we carried that lesson with us, that the strong must protect the vulnerable or strength itself becomes corruption. As they exchanged final farewells, a formal Azathian delegation approached, led by Tinus. The High Scholar carried an ornate container, which he presented to Admiral Hardin with ceremonial gravity. The Council has authorized me to share with you our complete research on Zereth communications technology, Tinus explained. This data was compiled from our previous encounters with their probe vessels. Combined with what you've recovered today, it may help develop countermeasures against future manipulations. Hardin accepted the container with appropriate solemnity. This trust honors us, High Scholar. I assure you it will be used solely for our mutual defense. Aboard the Aegis, later that night, Hardin stood at her familiar spot by the viewport. The stars seemed different somehow, not just distant lights, but connections to countless civilizations, each with their own story, their own struggle to survive and thrive in the vastness of space. Her executive officer approached with a datapad. Final casualty report, Admiral. 17 dead, 38 wounded across the fleet. 3 ships requiring major repairs. Hardin took the pad, scanning the names of the fallen. Each one represented a life given in service to a principle, that when the weak cry out, the strong must answer. Prepare a communication to each family. I'll record personal messages for all of them. There's also this, Admiral, the officer added. Analysis of the Zereth device has yielded something unexpected. The target wasn't just Azathia. There are coordinates embedded in its programming that point to other systems. We believe the Urak attacks may be part of a larger pattern. Hardin's expression hardened. A campaign of conquest by proxy. The Zereth remain in the shadows while the Urak and perhaps other species do their dirty work. It appears so. And sir, one of the targeted systems contains a human colony. New Horizon in the Velas sector. The implications were clear. The Zereth's ambitions extended beyond Azathia, and humanity had now placed itself directly in their path by interfering with their plans. Then our work here is just the beginning, Hardin said. Contact Fleet Command. We need reinforcements, and the United Planets Alliance must be informed of this threat. As the officer departed, Hardin turned back to the viewport. Below, Azathia glowed with the gentle light of a civilization saved from the brink. Beyond, the vastness of space held both promise and peril. A signal of distress had brought humans to this distant world. That signal had been answered not with conquest or indifference, but with protection, even at the cost of human lives. It was a precedent, perhaps, for a new kind of relationship between species in a dangerous galaxy. Not domination or subjugation, but alliance based on mutual respect and complementary strengths. The Deathworlders had come not to conquer, but to defend. And in doing so, they had announced their presence to forces that would threaten the peace of countless worlds. So be it, Hardin whispered to herself. Let them come. They'll find us ready. Thousands of light years away, in the shadowed chambers of a Zereth command center, crystalline beings received and processed the data transmitted by their failed proxy force. Images of human warships, analyses of their weapons capabilities, tactical evaluations of their combat methods. The Deathworlders have expanded beyond their system. One Zereth observed, its thoughts translated into audible vibrations. They protect the weak. This complicates our design. They are but one species, another responded. Aggressive, primitive despite their technology. They can be manipulated like the others. Perhaps the first conceded, or perhaps they represent something we had not anticipated, a variable in our calculations that requires further study. The crystalline beings continued their silent communion, plotting their next move in a game of expansion that had already consumed countless civilizations. But for the first time in eons, there was a note of uncertainty in their deliberations. The Deathworlders had responded to a cry for help from strangers, and that simple act of compassion might yet change the course of galactic history.